So before I get into reading a few of my pieces, I just wanted to give you some insights into each piece and how each has come to shape who I am as a writer. The first piece I will be sharing is my first personal narrative, which is really all about me finding my own place in this world as a writer. How do I identify myself? Are there characteristics that set me apart from other writers? Are there any that are similar? And so through this process of self-reflection and discovery, I end up finding myself to be a minority writer and seeing how many minorities have long been oppressed. So essentially, this piece is all about coming to terms with my own identity in writing and taking my own stance as a writer, and reminding the world that just because I am a minority, that does not mean that my voice shouldn't be heard. Therefore, I will be sharing the ending of this piece, and it reads as follows. One day, I can say that this inner struggle will cease, and integration will coexist. All the while, I will continue to fight, to push against the grain of oppression, seeking not to find new light in the struggle, but to shed light on the oppressor, to remind them that I am not beneath them, but a threat to them, that in this present state of war, it is in their best interest to give in. For I come from a culture of struggle, one that has long endured the oppression of the white man, and yet has prevailed. Therefore, I will endure all that is thrown at me, all the while becoming a formidable opponent whose strength cannot be ignored, watching as you try to tear all that I am right before me. Yet I will continue to build myself back up. I am tenacious, preserving, and impervious as the very mountain you stand on, yet possessing pliability that renders me unbreakable. I am a sovereign Hispanic, and I shall triumph. So now I wanted to shift gears, and the second piece I wanted to share is just a short poem, and it's really just about someone who's always tried to bring me down, and how eventually I've come to find myself and no longer buy into it. But more importantly, this piece is a reflection of me coming to terms with the person that I am, and how I see myself as a writer, one without limitations. So this piece is titled The Inevitable Truth About You and I. Before you, I had no idea who I was. I kicked and I screamed, yearning for freedom, but can't you see? I never needed you. We are all free. Freedom is who we are, and it's an expression of you, and you are free. But I don't expect you to understand. You have spent your whole life wondering what it means to be free. Freedom, the power to determine action without restraints. Restraints you've known too well. So well you've tried to apply them to me. But I know of none, for I only know of the limitless. Limitations are restrictions. Just as E equals mc squared is a true statement, so is my life without limitations. So essentially, when I was proposing what to do for my final presentation, I had thought to discuss both of my personal narratives. But I felt that personal narrative 1 was sufficient enough. And instead I wanted to incorporate some pieces that really show that I have started to find and have control over my voice in writing. Therefore, I decided to choose the very first piece I had written for this class, Jezebel. And this piece is all about a bad relationship I had been in for quite some time, and just me spilling my raw emotions out into a blank piece of paper. But all the while, me being firmly in the driver's seat of those emotions. So in the interest of time, I just decided to just cut out some portions and segments of the piece and incorporate it. So it reads as follows. You, Jezebel, were the very first person I've ever really loved. I just wished you felt the same. Otherwise, you would not have done what you did. You had ruined every single moment of warm embraces, of laughter, of happiness, of intimacy, of these past 3 years in a few single moments. All I ever wanted from you was for you to tell me that I was as much for you as you were to me, for you to even reciprocate half of all that I had felt for you, because it was you that had made even the most flawed instances in my life seem less flawed. It was the way every single flaw about you seemed to be imperfectly perfect. The way your hair never seemed to fall quite right, which drove you crazy. Yet to me, it always felt quite right. Or your smile, your beautiful, warm smile, which you so hated. Yet that smile never ceased to not put a smile on my face, even in the worst of times. Hell, at one point I even worshipped the very fucking ground you stood on. More importantly, you wrapped me into this web of ludicrous lies, only out of your own self-enjoyment. And I rode along, only because I loved you, hoping that this sick, twisted fucking game you were playing was eventually going to stop. But I'm no longer going to keep playing your game. You finally set me off the edge. You're no longer the apple of my eye, the icing on my cake, or the silver lining on my cloudy disposition. And so I just wanted to read the fourth piece that I've added onto my final portfolio. And what I did was just kind of, again, took bits and pieces of the final section of the piece, and the piece is titled My Life in the Limelight, and it reads as follows. As I made my way out of the airport, I had noticed a mob of screaming girls, a large group of photographers, and a stretched blacked out limo, my heart racing with excitement, thinking that finally my YouTube channel had taken off, and people had finally started to recognize who I was. However, after quick self-evaluation, I'd realized that I had only but a few thousand YouTube subscribers, and not to mention most of my videos didn't actually include my face. They were all gaming videos. I then quickly came to my senses and realized that none of what I saw was for me, but for someone else. So, out of pure curiosity and certainty, I made my way towards the swarm of people, to get a glimpse of what all the excitement had been about. As I neared, I noticed that there were several celebrities that I had known or been familiar with. But then there was him. I had no idea who he was, but the way the crowd hung on his every word, I knew he had been someone important. The way the people looked on and admired his every gesture, begging for his attention. As I walked closer, I noticed a pair of eyes fixated on me. I turned to my right, and it was he looking directly at me. After noticing that he received my attention, Jesse asked the crowd to be silent. And while having his eyes directly on mine, he said, "You in the black polo and the glasses, come join us."